The detective's son was blind. But an inmate touched him and something amazing happened. Detective Jennifer Taylor was in the middle of an interrogation when her phone rang. It was from her son Ethan's school. The 10-year-old boy had suffered an accident during recess and was being rushed to the hospital. The phone slipped from her trembling hands when the nurse said the words that shattered her world. Ethan had completely lost his sight. An accident during playtime in the schoolyard resulted in trauma that irreversibly affected his optic nerves. Jennifer abandoned everything at the New York City police station. The inmate awaiting interrogation was forgotten in the room, papers scattered across the floor, and she ran as she had never run in her life. At the hospital, she found her little Ethan waking up from emergency surgery with his eyes bandaged, screaming in panic. "Mommy, I can't see anything. Why is everything dark?" The words came out broken between desperate sobs. Jennifer held her son's small hands, trying to control her own tears. How to explain to a 10-year-old that he would never see his mother's face again, never watch a movie again, never chase a ball in the neighborhood field again? "Calm down, my love. Mommy is here," she whispered, but the words sounded hollow even to herself. The doctors were clear. There was nothing more to be done. The trauma had been too severe, and the optic nerves were irreparably damaged. Ethan would have to learn to live in a world completely different from what he knew. In the following days, Jennifer needed to return to work, but her mind was always with her son. Ethan refused to leave his room, didn't want to eat properly, and spent hours crying silently. She hired a nanny, but the boy wouldn't accept help from anyone. He would just scream when someone tried to approach. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. This really helps us, who are just starting out, now continuing. Back at the police station, Jennifer tried to maintain focus on work, but it was impossible. Every moan she heard through the corridors reminded her of her son's anguished cries. It was during one of these difficult afternoons that something unexpected happened. The inmate she had abandoned during the interrogation days before asked to speak with her. His name was Michael Johnson, a black man of about 40, a former music teacher who had been convicted of misusing school funds. Jennifer had briefly studied his case. He had diverted money from the school where he worked to buy musical instruments for underprivileged children. "Detective, I heard about your boy," said Michael when she finally received him in the interrogation room. "I know this will sound strange coming from me, but perhaps I can help." Jennifer looked at him with suspicion. Michael was a man of serene appearance, with kind eyes, but she had learned over the years that appearances could be deceiving, especially when it came to criminals trying to reduce their sentences. "You have nothing I want to hear," she replied dryly. "I know how to teach Braille through music, detective. I worked 15 years with special needs children before. Before I made my mistake, I can help your son adapt." The proposal sounded absurd to Jennifer. How could she trust a man convicted of misusing public money? How could she even consider letting him near Ethan? "Do you think I'm stupid? Are you trying to use my son's situation to get benefits for your sentence?" Michael shook his head, a sad look crossing his face. "Detective, I have a daughter. She hasn't spoken to me since I was arrested. I know what it's like to see a child suffer and not be able to do anything. If I can help your boy, I want to help. Without any interest in my situation here." Jennifer left more irritated than she had arrived. How dare that man speak of his daughter when he had stolen money that should have been used to educate children? For weeks, she tried to get the conversation out of her head, but Ethan's situation only worsened. The boy had completely stopped eating. He spent entire days in his room, refusing to come out or try to learn anything about his new condition. Jennifer hired specialists, therapists, teachers specialized in visual impairment, but Ethan rejected them all. He screamed when anyone tried to teach him Braille, refused to use a cane, and had developed an aggressiveness that broke his mother's heart. One night, Jennifer woke to the sound of crying coming from her son's room. She found him sitting on the floor, banging his head against the wall repeatedly. "Ethan, stop that. You're going to hurt yourself." "I want to hurt myself, Mom. I want it to hurt on the outside too," shouted the boy, and Jennifer realized she had reached her limit. The next morning, she went to see Michael in jail. "Is your offer still on the table?" she asked, hating herself for having to resort to this. "It always has been, detective. Then let's set some ground rules. First, you are never alone with my son. There will always be someone supervising. Second, at the slightest sign of anything strange, I end it immediately. Third, this doesn't affect your situation here at all. Don't expect any benefits. Michael agreed to everything without hesitation. The first meeting was scheduled for the next day in a private room at the police station, with 2 guards present the entire time. Ethan arrived holding Jennifer's arm, clearly resistant to the situation. His blonde hair was disheveled, and he had visibly lost weight in recent weeks. The boy sat in a chair, turning his face away from where he imagined Michael was. "Hi, Ethan. My name is Michael. Is it okay if I sit here near you?" Ethan didn't respond. Michael waited a few minutes in silence before speaking again. "You know, Ethan, I brought some interesting things today. I'm going to make some sounds, and I want you to tell me what you think they are." Michael took a pen from his pocket and began tapping it lightly on the glass table. The crystalline sound echoed through the quiet room. Ethan moved his head slightly toward the sound but said nothing. Then Michael tapped the pen on a wooden surface, then on the metal of the chair, then on the leather of a briefcase. Each surface produced a different sound, and Jennifer noticed that Ethan was paying attention, even while trying to pretend he wasn't. "Every material has its own voice, Ethan. Glass sings high, wood whispers, metal resonates. Can you hear the differences?" The boy didn't respond, but Jennifer saw that he had stopped fidgeting in his chair and was listening intently. Michael continued with the demonstration, using everyday objects to create a symphony of sound textures. Coins jingling, paper being crumpled, water being poured into a glass. Each sound was presented musically, as if part of a composition. After an hour, Ethan still hadn't said a word, but he also hadn't cried or screamed as he did with all the other specialists. Michael said goodbye politely, saying he would return the next day if Ethan wanted. "I don't want him to come back," murmured Ethan on the way home, but his voice lacked its usual anger. At the second meeting, Michael brought small objects with different textures: smooth stones, dry leaves, pieces of fabric, sponges. He placed them on the table and told Ethan he could touch them if he wanted, but it wasn't mandatory. "Every texture tells a story, Ethan. This stone here is smooth because water caressed it for years. This leaf is rough because it stored the whole summer's sun." Curiously, Ethan reached out and touched one of the stones. His fingers explored it carefully, and for the first time in weeks, Jennifer saw something resembling interest on her son's face. Michael continued talking about each object, creating imaginative yet comforting stories about their origins. Ethan began touching more objects, and Jennifer noticed the boy was smiling timidly when his hands discovered a new texture. On the third meeting, something happened that would change everything. Michael brought a small musical keyboard and placed it on the table. Ethan immediately pulled his hands back. "I can't play, I can't see the keys," he said, and these were the first words he spoke directly to Michael. "You don't need to see, Ethan. Music doesn't live in the eyes. It lives in the fingers, in the heart, in the ear. Would you like me to show you?" Michael began playing a simple melody. His fingers danced across the keys naturally, and the music that emerged was soft and comforting. Ethan listened in silence, and Jennifer saw tears streaming down the boy's face, but they weren't tears of sadness. "How can you know where the keys are without looking?" asked Ethan. "Because my fingers know where they live. Just like you know where your mouth is when you're hungry, or where your nose is when you want to scratch it. Want to try?" Ethan hesitated but finally extended his hands. Michael guided his small fingers to the keys, showing him where middle C was. "Now press here," said Michael. Ethan pressed the key, and a clear sound filled the room. "Did I do that?" asked Ethan in wonder. "You did, and now I'm going to teach you something even cooler." Michael began teaching Ethan to identify notes by sound, not through sheet music or traditional methods, but through each note's own musicality. Ethan seemed to have a natural aptitude for this, and soon could identify when Michael played C, D, or E. During one of their sessions, something unexpected happened. Michael stopped playing abruptly and remained silent for several minutes. "Uncle Michael, what happened?" asked Ethan, using an affectionate term for the first time. Jennifer saw that Michael had tears in his eyes. "Nothing, Ethan. It's just, you reminded me of someone very special. Who? Michael hesitated before answering. My daughter. She also learned music with me when she was little. But she doesn't speak to me anymore. Why? Because I made a terrible mistake. I took money that wasn't mine to buy musical instruments for children who didn't have any. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong, and because of that, I lost my daughter. Ethan was thoughtful for a moment. How old is she? 22. Her name is Emily. Maybe she'll forgive you someday. I forgave my mom for not being with me on the day of the accident. Jennifer felt a tightness in her chest. She didn't know Ethan had held resentment toward her for working at the time of the accident. Did you really forgive me, son? I did, Mom. Uncle Michael taught me that sometimes people do bad things for reasons they think are good, and that everyone deserves a second chance. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The sessions continued, and Ethan progressed impressively. Michael had developed his own teaching method that combined music, textures, and stories to help the boy develop his other senses. Ethan learned to identify people by the sound of their footsteps, recognize places by their specific echoes, and even perceive people's moods by their tone of voice. But not everything was perfect. Other inmates in the prison began to suspect Michael's frequent outings for sessions with Ethan. Malicious comments circulated through the corridors, and some of the more dangerous prisoners did not look kindly upon his closeness with a detective. One afternoon, Michael arrived for the session with an injury on his face. He tried to disguise it, sitting sideways so Ethan wouldn't notice, but the boy had developed an extraordinary sensitivity. Uncle Michael, are you hurt? Ethan asked as soon as he sat down. No, Ethan, I'm fine. No, you're not. Your voice sounds different, and you're breathing in a strange way, just like when my mom has a headache. Jennifer looked more closely at Michael and saw the signs of the injury he was trying to hide. A black eye, a small cut on his lip. Michael, what happened? Nothing, Detective. Just a misunderstanding. But Ethan wouldn't let it go. Did the other inmates do this to you because of me? Michael didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. I don't want you to get hurt because of me, Uncle Michael. Maybe we should stop the lessons. No, Michael answered too quickly, revealing how much the sessions meant to him too. Ethan, some good things in life come with challenges, but that doesn't mean we should give up on them. Jennifer became worried. She knew how the hierarchy worked inside the prison. If the other inmates had marked Michael as a police collaborator, he was in serious danger. Michael, perhaps Ethan is right. I can't allow you to put yourself in danger. Detective, may I speak with you in private? Jennifer asked the guards to accompany Ethan to the room next door. When they were alone, Michael opened up completely. Detective, these sessions with Ethan are the first good thing I've done in years. Since I lost my daughter, since I made that terrible mistake, I felt useless. When I see Ethan learning, when I see him smiling, I remember who I was before I ruined everything. Please don't take this away from me too. Jennifer found herself facing an impossible dilemma. On one hand, she couldn't allow Michael to put himself at risk. On the other, she saw how the sessions were important, not only for Ethan but also for Michael himself. I need to think of a solution. But in the meantime, you have to promise me you'll protect yourself. I promise, Detective. But things only got worse. The following week, Michael arrived with more injuries, this time trying to hide an arm that was clearly in pain. Ethan immediately sensed something was wrong. They hurt you again, said Ethan, not as a question but as a statement. Ethan, don't lie to me, Uncle Michael. I may not see, but I'm not stupid. Your left arm is hurting. You're breathing slowly because your ribs hurt, and your voice is shaky like when someone is holding back tears. Ethan's sharp perception left everyone in the room impressed. Jennifer realized the boy had developed an almost superhuman ability to read signs that sighted people wouldn't even notice. You're right, Ethan. They don't like that I come here. They say I'm playing the fool for the police. Then I don't want to have lessons anymore, said Ethan, but his voice was broken. It was obvious he wanted to continue, but he couldn't bear to see Michael getting hurt because of him. Jennifer made a decision at that moment. She knew the prison system well and knew Michael wouldn't survive long if he continued to be seen as a collaborator. She needed to act. The next day, Jennifer spoke with the prison warden. She explained the situation and asked for Michael to be transferred to a security cell, away from the other inmates who were threatening him. She also requested that the sessions with Ethan take place in a special room, with more security. Some of Jennifer's colleagues couldn't understand why she was working so hard to protect an inmate convicted of corruption. Hurtful comments began circulating at the police station, suggesting she was developing inappropriate feelings for the prisoner. "Jennifer, be careful not to get too involved," warned her partner, Detective David. "What will people think if they find out you're giving special treatment to a criminal?" "David, it's not about him. It's about my son. Ethan is progressing in ways no specialist could achieve." "But what if this is all an act? What if this guy is manipulating you through Ethan?" The doubt planted by David began growing in Jennifer's mind. What if Michael was indeed using Ethan to gain benefits? What if all that kindness was just a well-rehearsed performance? Jennifer decided to investigate Michael's past more thoroughly. What she discovered left her even more confused. Michael Johnson had truly been an exemplary teacher for 15 years. He had dozens of recommendation letters from parents, awards for dedication to teaching, and had created 3 music programs for underprivileged children. The embezzlement that landed him in prison had been discovered almost by accident during a routine audit. Michael admitted guilt immediately, without trying to hide or blame others. The embezzled money, about $15,000, had been used entirely to buy musical instruments for a music project in underserved communities. What impressed Jennifer most was discovering that Michael continued sending money from his own pocket to keep the project running even after being arrested. He had sold his car, his house, everything, to ensure the children wouldn't lose their music lessons. But there was a dark side to the story. His daughter Emily, who was 19 at the time, was devastated by her father's imprisonment. She had just started university and had to drop out because she couldn't pay the tuition. The entire family was destroyed by the scandal, and Emily never spoke to Michael again. Jennifer began to understand that Michael wasn't a common criminal. He was a man who had made a terrible mistake with good intentions, but who had paid a very high price for it. Meanwhile, the sessions with Ethan continued producing extraordinary results. The boy hadn't just learned musical braille, but was also developing an impressive musical ability. He could play simple melodies on the keyboard by ear and had even started composing his own songs. "Mommy, can I show you the song I made for Uncle Michael?" asked Ethan one afternoon after a particularly productive session. Ethan sat at the piano in the police station lounge and began to play. The melody was simple but touching. It had moments of sadness that recalled a lament, but ended with joyful and hopeful notes. "It's beautiful, son. How did you think of this melody?" "It's Uncle Michael's story, Mommy. It starts sad because he lost his daughter and ended up in prison. But it ends happy because he's helping me and maybe one day his daughter will forgive him." Jennifer felt a lump in her throat. Her 10-year-old son had understood the complexity of Michael's situation in a way many adults couldn't. Then something unexpected happened. Michael's lawyer, who had learned about the work he was doing with Ethan, decided to use this as an argument for a sentence reduction request. She argued that Michael was providing valuable service to society and that this demonstrated his true rehabilitation. Jennifer was furious when she learned this. All her suspicions came flooding back. Could Michael have planned this from the beginning? Was he really using Ethan to get out of prison early? In the next session, she confronted Michael directly. "Your lawyer is using your sessions with Ethan to request a reduction in your sentence. Was this planned from the beginning?" Michael was visibly shaken by the accusation. "Detective, I swear I didn't know anything about this. I never asked her to do that." "Then ask her to withdraw the request." I can't do that." "Why not? If you really care about Ethan and aren't using him, withdraw the request." Michael remained silent for a long time before answering. "Because I have hope of seeing my daughter again. If I get out early, maybe there will still be time to try to rebuild our relationship. But that doesn't mean I'm using Ethan. Everything I did with him was genuine." Michael's honest answer left Jennifer even more confused. On one hand, she could understand his desire to recover his relationship with his daughter. On the other, she couldn't accept that the sessions with Ethan might have a hidden motivation. Ethan, who had listened to the entire conversation, was quiet for a while before speaking. "Uncle Michael, if you get out of prison, will you stop teaching me music?" "Never, Ethan. Even if I get out, I'll always be here for you." "And what if your daughter still doesn't want to talk to you?" Michael sighed deeply. "Then at least I'll know I tried. But no matter what happens with my daughter, you will always be special to me." Jennifer realized she was facing a more complex situation than she had imagined. Michael wasn't a cold manipulator trying to use her son. He was a desperate man trying to rebuild his life after losing everything because of a mistake. But the complications were just beginning. The request for a reduced sentence generated controversy in the local press. Some newspapers criticized Jennifer for allowing an inmate to have privileged access to her son. Others questioned whether this constituted undue favoritism. Jennifer's superior, Chief of Detectives Richard Wilson, called her into his office for a serious talk. "Jennifer, this situation is generating a lot of commentary. There are people questioning your professional conduct." "My son is progressing in an extraordinary way. That's what matters. I understand your situation as a mother, but you are also a detective. You can't appear to be giving special treatment to a criminal." "Michael isn't a common criminal, boss. He's a man who made a mistake trying to help children. That doesn't change the fact that he embezzled public funds, and now he's using the situation with your son to get out of prison early." Jennifer left the office knowing her career was at risk, but when she got home and saw Ethan playing the piano by himself, composing his own melodies, she knew she couldn't give up. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, things got even more complicated when Emily, Michael's daughter, unexpectedly showed up at the police station. She was a young woman of 22 with dark hair, sad eyes, and an expression of barely contained anger. "I heard my father is using a child to get out of prison," she said directly to Jennifer. "It's not exactly like that." "Isn't it? Then explain to me why he suddenly became a music teacher again after 3 years in prison." Jennifer tried to explain the situation, but Emily didn't want to listen. She was clearly hurt and resentful of her father and saw the whole situation as just another manipulation. "Can I speak with this child?" asked Emily. Jennifer hesitated, but Ethan was at the police station at that moment, waiting for the daily session. She decided to introduce them. "Ethan, this is Emily, Michael's daughter." Ethan immediately extended his hand toward the sound of Emily's voice. "Hi, Emily. Your father talks about you a lot. He says you're beautiful and that he loves you very much." Emily was visibly moved, but tried to maintain her composure. "He really said that?" "Every day. He gets sad when he talks about you, but happy at the same time. Like when I think about my grandma who's no longer here, sad because she's gone, but happy because she loved me." "Did my father tell you about his problems?" "He said he took money that wasn't his to buy instruments for poor children, said it was wrong, but that he wanted to help. Like when I sneak cookies to give to my dog. It's wrong to take without asking, but I want to help the dog." The simplicity of Ethan's comparison touched Emily deeply. She had spent 3 years seeing her father as a criminal, but through Ethan's innocent eyes she began to remember the kind man who raised her. "Do you think he's a good person?" asked Emily. "I think he made a mistake, but has a good heart, like my mommy when she yells at me. She's not mean, just gets nervous sometimes." Emily fell silent for a long time, watching Ethan. The boy had a serenity that didn't match his young age. It was as if his blindness had developed in him a premature wisdom about human nature. "Do you want to meet your father?" Ethan asked suddenly. "I don't know if I'm ready. He cries sometimes when he talks about you, not crying in pain, like when he gets beaten by other inmates. It's crying from missing you." "He gets beaten in prison?" Ethan told about Michael's injuries, about how other inmates didn't like him because of the music sessions. Emily was horrified to learn her father was suffering violence in prison. "Why didn't he stop teaching you if it was getting him hurt?" "Because he said some good things in life come with challenges, and that we shouldn't give up on important things because of obstacles." Those words were typical of the father Emily remembered. Michael always used phrases like that when she was a child facing difficulties in school or with friends. "Emily, can I ask you something?" said Ethan. "Sure. Can you play a song with him? Just one song. If you don't like it, you can leave and never see him again. But if you like it, maybe you can be friends again." Emily felt cornered by the innocence of the proposal. How could she deny such a simple request from a child who had been through so much suffering? "All right, just one song." The meeting between Michael and Emily was scheduled for the next day in a special room at the police station. Jennifer decided to stay outside, but Ethan insisted on participating. When Emily entered the room and saw her father after 3 years, she nearly broke down. Michael was thinner, had graying hair she didn't remember, and there was a deep sadness in his eyes. "Emily, my daughter." Michael rose from his chair but didn't dare approach. "Dad." The silence between them was heavy, laden with 3 years of hurt, regret, and longing. It was Ethan who broke the tension. "Uncle Michael, show Emily that song you taught me, the one about forgiving." Michael hesitated, but went to the small keyboard he always used in their sessions. He began playing a soft melody, melancholy at first, but gradually becoming more hopeful. "This song is called Second Chance," said Michael as he played. "I composed it here in prison, thinking of you, Emily." Emily listened in silence, and Jennifer saw tears streaming down the young woman's face. She recognized her father's musical style, the way he always managed to tell stories through the notes. "Now it's your turn, Emily," said Ethan. "Your father said you've played piano since you were little." "I haven't played in 3 years." "Fingers don't forget," said Michael softly, "like riding a bicycle." Emily approached the keyboard hesitantly. She positioned her fingers over the keys and began to play a piece Michael had taught her when she was 12. It was a simple piece, but filled with memories. Michael began to accompany her, and for the first time in 3 years, father and daughter made music together again. Ethan listened in rapture with a smile on his face that Jennifer hadn't seen since before the accident. "That's beautiful," exclaimed Ethan when they finished. "You play alike. I can feel that you love each other through the music." Ethan's innocence broke down all the barriers Emily had built. She finally allowed herself to cry, releasing 3 years of pent-up pain. "Dad, I missed you so much," she whispered. Michael approached and hugged her for the first time in 3 years. It was a moment of reconciliation that touched everyone present. But not everything was perfect. Michael's case was still in the courts, and his original sentence was 6 years. Even with the request for a reduction, he still had at least 2 years ahead. Emily had lost her university scholarship because of her father's scandal. She was working as a clerk in a clothing store to support herself, earning very little. Reconnecting with her father wouldn't solve her financial problems. "Dad, I want to forgive you, but I can't forget that my life was destroyed because of what you did." "I know, my dear, and if I could go back, I would do everything differently. But I can't. I can only try to be a better father from now on." "How can you be a better father if you're going to be locked up for 2 more years?" "I don't know, but I'll find a way." Ethan, who was listening to everything, had an idea. "Uncle Michael, why don't you teach music to more kids here at the police station, like you used to do at school?" Ethan's suggestion planted a seed in Jennifer's mind. What if they could create an official music program for children with visual impairments? It would be a way for Michael to contribute positively to society, even while incarcerated. Jennifer spoke with her superiors about the possibility. The idea was met with skepticism at first, but when she presented the extraordinary results achieved with Ethan, some began to show interest. "Jennifer, this could be good publicity for the police station," said Chief of Detectives Richard Wilson. "It shows we're doing social work." The motivation wasn't the noblest, but Jennifer didn't mind. The important thing was to give Michael a chance to do something positive. The program was approved on an experimental basis. Michael could work with up to 5 children at a time, always under supervision, and only with children who had some form of visual impairment. The first class included Ethan and 4 other children: Olivia, 8 years old, who had lost her sight due to an infection; Jacob, 12 years old, who was born with partial blindness; Ava, 9 years old, who had lost an eye in a household accident, and William, 11 years old, who had a degenerative disease that was gradually affecting his vision. Michael developed specific methods for each child, adapting his techniques to individual needs. With Olivia, he used a lot of touch and texture because she had recently lost her sight and was still adjusting. With Jacob, who had partial blindness, he worked with visual and auditory contrasts. With Ava, who had only one eye, he focused on depth perception through sound. And with William, who was gradually losing his sight, he taught music memorization techniques he could use when he lost his vision completely. The results were impressive. Within a few weeks, all the children were making remarkable progress. Olivia had stopped having nightmares about her blindness. Jacob had discovered he could use his partial vision in ways he hadn't imagined. Ava had developed a confidence she hadn't had since the accident, and William had found hope to face the future. The children's families were impressed with the results. Some even wrote letters to the judge overseeing Michael's case, asking for him to be considered for parole. But not everything was going well. Some of Jennifer's colleagues began openly questioning her decisions. Rumors circulated through the police station that she was developing inappropriate feelings for Michael. "Jennifer, you need to be careful," her partner David warned her again. "People are talking about you and that inmate." "What kind of talk?" "They say you're in love with him, that you're using Ethan's situation as an excuse to be near him." Jennifer was furious at the suggestion. "That's ridiculous. My only interest is in my son's well-being." "I know that, but others don't. You need to maintain more professional distance." "How can I keep my distance when my son is finally getting better?" The pressure on Jennifer increased when a local newspaper published a sensational story about the case. The headline read, "Detective allows criminal to use blind son to reduce sentence." The article completely distorted the facts, suggesting that Michael was manipulating a vulnerable child to gain legal benefits, and that Jennifer was being naive or had personal motivations for allowing it. The fallout was devastating. Jennifer received dozens of calls from people criticizing her conduct. Some even threatened her for putting a child in danger. Ethan, who had developed an extraordinary sensitivity to picking up tensions in the environment, sensed something was wrong. "Mommy, are you sad because of me?" "Why would you think that, son?" "Because your voice has been different for a few days. And you sigh a lot when you think I'm not listening." Jennifer was once again impressed by her son's perception. She tried to explain the situation in a way he could understand. "Some people think Uncle Michael shouldn't teach you music. They think he's a bad person. But do they know Uncle Michael? No. Then how can they know if he's good or bad without knowing him?" Ethan's simple logic made Jennifer realize how people judged without knowing the facts. She decided she wouldn't let public opinion destroy something that was so positive for her son, but the pressure kept mounting. Chief Richard called her into his office again. "Jennifer, I'm going to have to consider transferring you to another police station." "Why? My work hasn't changed at all." "Because you've become the center of a controversy. This isn't good for the institution's image." "So the institution's image is more important than a child's well-being." "Jennifer, you're being biased. Think rationally." "Think. You're a desperate mother who allowed a criminal to manipulate your emotional situation. Michael is not manipulating me. The results with Ethan are real and measurable. But at what cost? Your career is at risk, your reputation is being questioned, and you're exposing your son to public criticism." Jennifer left the office knowing she had little time before being forced to choose between her career and Ethan's sessions with Michael. That night, she spoke honestly with Ethan about the situation. "Son, we might have to stop the lessons with Uncle Michael." Ethan remained silent for a long time before answering. "Is it because of those people who don't like him?" "Partly, yes." "Mommy, before Uncle Michael, I wanted to hurt myself because I couldn't accept being different. Now I know that being different isn't bad, it's just being different. If we stop the lessons, how will I keep learning?" "There are other teachers, son, but not like Uncle Michael. He understands what it's like to make mistakes and try to fix them. He understands what it means to lose people we love. The other teachers only know about music. Uncle Michael knows about life. Jennifer was once again impressed by Ethan's wisdom. Her son had understood something many adults failed to see, that Michael wasn't just a music teacher, but someone who had been through losses and mistakes, and because of that, could teach much more than just musical techniques. Jennifer made a decision right then. She wouldn't let outside pressure destroy something that was saving her son's emotional life. If it cost her career, then so be it. Ethan was more important. The next day, she went to Michael to tell him about the transfer threats. "Michael, maybe it's better if you give up the program. I don't want you to be harmed because of my situation. Detective, these children are the only good thing that's happened in my life since I was imprisoned. If I give up on them, what will be left of me? But you could be transferred to a worse prison. You could lose your chance at parole. So what? If I can't help these children, what difference does it make where I serve my sentence?" Michael's determination to continue the work, even knowing the risks, convinced Jennifer that he truly wasn't using the children for his own benefit. He was genuinely committed to their well-being. It was then that something unexpected happened. One of the mothers from the program, Mrs. Sarah, mother of little Olivia, organized a support movement for Michael and Jennifer. She contacted other families, and together they wrote an open letter to the newspapers, defending the program and explaining the positive results their children had achieved. The letter was published in a major newspaper and had an immediate impact. Dozens of people began to speak out in support of the program. Some offered donations of musical instruments, others volunteered to help with transportation for the children. But the decisive moment came when Ethan had an idea that would change everything. "Mommy, what if we put on a musical performance to show what we've learned? A performance where, son? Here at the police station, we can invite those people who don't like Uncle Michael to see what he actually does." Ethan's idea was risky. If the performance didn't go well, it could reinforce the arguments against the program. But if it went well, it could change the public perception of Michael and his work. Jennifer talked with Michael about the proposal. "It's a big risk, Detective. If the children get nervous and can't play well." Ethan seems confident, and the other children are excited about the idea too. "Then let's do it. But I'll prepare the children well. I can't let them be exposed to criticism if something goes wrong." The performance was scheduled for a week later. Jennifer invited co-workers, superiors, journalists, and some of the people who had publicly criticized the program. She also invited the children's family members and members of the local community. Michael worked intensively with the 5 children, preparing a small recital. Each child would play an individual piece, and at the end, everyone would play together a composition Michael had created especially for the occasion. Ethan chose to play the song he had composed for Michael, the one that told the story of sadness turning into hope. Olivia would play an adapted version of Amazing Grace, using only one hand on the keyboard and the other percussing on different textures. Jacob would present a piece that mixed visual and auditory sounds. Ava would play a song she had composed about overcoming fears. And William would present a complex piece from memory, showing his skills before he completely lost his sight. On the day of the performance, the room at the police station was packed. There were journalists, police officers, family members, and some people who had come specifically to criticize the program. Michael was brought in handcuffed, as protocol requires, but Jennifer asked for the handcuffs to be removed during the presentation. Some superiors protested, but she insisted. "If we're going to showcase his work, we need to do it in a dignified way." The presentation began with Ethan. The boy approached the piano with confidence, found the keys easily, and began to play his composition. The melody was simple but touching. It told a story without words, conveying emotions that moved everyone present. When Ethan finished, there was an admiring silence in the room. Then, a spontaneous round of applause broke out. Even the people who had come to criticize couldn't hide their admiration for the boy's performance. Olivia was next. The 8-year-old girl played with impressive delicacy, using sound textures that Michael had developed especially for her. Her presentation showed how it was possible to make music even with physical limitations. Jacob surprised everyone with a performance that combined his partial vision with developed auditory skills. He played while describing the colors and shapes he saw in the music, creating a unique synesthetic experience. Ava presented her composition about overcoming fears. The music began hesitantly, reflecting her initial insecurity, but gradually became strong and confident. It was impossible not to be moved by the message conveyed through the notes. Finally, William presented the most complex piece. He played a 5-minute composition from memory, demonstrating skills that would impress any professional pianist. His presentation showed that visual impairment did not limit musical potential. The highlight came when the 5 children played Michael's special composition together. It was a piece that celebrated diversity, showing how different abilities could complement each other to create something beautiful. During the music, Michael discreetly conducted, guiding the children with gentle gestures. His dedication and affection for each of them were evident in every movement. When the presentation ended, the room fell silent for a few seconds. Then, thunderous applause filled the space. Some people were crying with emotion, others were applauding while standing. One of the journalists who had written critical articles approached Jennifer after the presentation. "Detective, I need to apologize. I didn't understand the scope of the work being done here." "No need to apologize. You didn't know the facts. Can I write a new article? This time telling the true story?" Jennifer agreed, and in the following days several newspapers published positive articles about the program. Public opinion changed drastically. Instead of criticism, praise and offers of support began to arrive. Chief Richard, who had threatened to transfer Jennifer, completely changed his position when he saw the positive response. "Jennifer, congratulations on the work. We're thinking about expanding the program to other police stations." "So I won't be transferred anymore?" "On the contrary, we want you to lead the implementation of the program in other units." The success of the presentation had unexpected consequences. Several music schools offered partnerships to help with the program. Musical instrument stores made donations, and most importantly, a group of volunteer lawyers offered to help Michael with his legal case. Michael's request for parole was heard a few weeks later. This time, in addition to traditional legal arguments, there were dozens of letters of support from the children's families, education professionals, and community members. Ethan insisted on giving his testimony during the hearing. "Your Honor, before I met Uncle Michael, I wanted to hurt myself because I couldn't accept that I was different. Now I know that being different is just a different way of seeing the world. Uncle Michael taught me that music isn't about seeing the notes on paper. It's about feeling the notes in your heart." Ethan's testimony, delivered with a child's naturalness, but with a wisdom that touched everyone present, was decisive. The judge granted probation on the condition that Michael continue his volunteer work with the children. When the decision was announced, Michael cried openly in the courtroom. Emily, who had followed the entire process, hugged her father emotionally. "Dad, I'm proud of you. Daughter, none of this would have been possible without Ethan. He taught me that past mistakes can turn into opportunities to do good in the present." Michael's probation marked a new chapter in the lives of everyone involved. The music program for children with visual impairments was made official and expanded. Michael began working as a volunteer coordinator, receiving a small stipend that allowed him to support himself modestly. Emily secured a new scholarship at a private university, sponsored by a company that was moved by her story. She resumed her studies in pedagogy, specializing in inclusive music education. Jennifer was promoted and began leading a department specializing in social programs within the public security system. Her experience with the music program served as a model for other initiatives, but the biggest beneficiary was Ethan. The boy had not only overcome the trauma of his blindness, but had also discovered an exceptional talent for music. He began performing at charity events, always accompanied by Michael, bringing his story of overcoming adversity to other children in similar situations. During one of these performances, Ethan met a professional pianist who was impressed with his talent. She offered to give the boy advanced lessons, free of charge. "Ethan, you have a very special gift," the teacher said. "With the right work, you could become a professional pianist." "I want that, Mom. But I also want to help other kids like me, just like Uncle Michael does." Ethan's response showed he had learned not just musical techniques from Michael, but also fundamental human values like compassion and solidarity. 6 months after the probation, Michael organized a special concert at the Lincoln Center. All the children who had participated in the program would perform, along with some professional musicians who had volunteered to take part. The center was packed. In the audience were the children's families, Jennifer's colleagues from the police station, local authorities, and hundreds of people who had followed the story in the press. The performance was an absolute success. Each child demonstrated not just musical skills, but a confidence and joy that contrasted drastically with the state they were in before meeting Michael. The highlight of the concert came when Ethan and Michael played a new composition they had created together. It was a piece that told their entire story, from their first meeting at the police station to that moment of triumph. The music began with hesitant, somber notes, representing Ethan's initial trauma. Gradually, new sounds joined in, representing Michael's arrival and the beginning of their learning. The piece evolved into more complex and beautiful harmonies, symbolizing growth and overcoming. At the end, the music transformed into a celebration, with all 5 children from the program joining together to create a symphony of hope and renewal. When the concert ended, the ovation lasted for several minutes. But the most emotional moment came when Ethan approached the microphone to address the audience. "I wanted to thank Uncle Michael for teaching me that darkness isn't the end of light. It's just a different place where light shines in other ways. He taught me that music isn't in the eyes, it's in the heart, and that love doesn't need to be seen, it needs to be felt." Ethan's words, spoken with the seriousness of someone much older but maintaining a child's purity, deeply touched everyone present. Many people were openly crying, moved by the boy's precocious wisdom. Michael approached the microphone, visibly emotional. "When I arrived at that police station 3 years ago, I was a broken man. I had lost my family, my career, my dignity. I thought I had nothing left to offer the world. Ethan and these other wonderful children showed me that we can always start over, that our mistakes don't define who we are, but what we do after them does." He paused, looking at Emily in the audience. "My daughter, Emily, taught me about forgiveness. Detective Jennifer gave me an opportunity when no one else would. But it was these children who taught me the most important lesson, that life's true music doesn't come from instruments. It comes from the ability to transform pain into hope, isolation into community, and darkness into light." Michael's speech was met with renewed applause, but this time it included shouts of bravo and thank you coming from various parts of Lincoln Center. After the concert, there was a reception where people could talk with Michael and the children. Many parents approached interested in enrolling their children in the program. Others offered donations or volunteer work. An elderly gentleman, who identified himself as a retired teacher, spoke at length with Michael. "Young man, you've done something few achieve in life. You transformed personal tragedy into an opportunity to serve others. That's rare and precious." "Thank you, sir. But actually the children taught me more than I taught them. That's the sign of a true educator, recognizing that we are always students too." During the reception, Ethan moved through the hall with impressive confidence. He identified people by their voices, moved securely through the space, and interacted naturally with strangers. It was hard to believe this was the same boy who months earlier refused to leave his room. A journalist covering the event asked Ethan what he wanted to be when he grew up. "I want to be a music teacher, just like Uncle Michael. I want to teach children who think they're different to discover they're special." "And what would you say to other children going through the same situation you experienced?" Ethan thought for a moment before answering. "I'd say that at first it will be very hard. You'll be angry, you'll want to give up, you'll think your life is over. But it's not over. It just changed. And sometimes changes bring good things we never imagined. I would never have met Uncle Michael if it weren't for my accident, and he changed my life in ways I didn't even know were possible." The maturity of Ethan's response impressed the journalist, who featured his words prominently in her article. In the following months, the program continued growing. Michael worked not only with children with visual impairments, but also with those who had other physical or emotional limitations. He developed specific methods for each type of need, always based on the principle that music was a universal language that transcended physical limitations. Emily completed her degree in education and was invited to work as Michael's assistant in the program. The partnership between father and daughter brought a new dynamic to the work, combining Michael's experience with new teaching techniques that Emily had learned in university. Jennifer was invited to give lectures about the program in other cities, helping to implement similar initiatives in different states. Their story became an example of how decisions based on compassion and courage could generate extraordinary results. 2 years after the first meeting between Michael and Ethan, the program had expanded to 5 different police stations and served more than 50 children. Michael had become a respected figure in the community, often invited to events and conferences about inclusive education. But for Michael, the most important success remained his relationship with the children. He knew each one by name, knew their stories, their difficulties, their dreams. To him, they weren't numbers or case studies. They were unique little human beings, each with their own potential to be discovered. Ethan remained special to Michael. The boy had become not only his most advanced student, but also his little assistant. During sessions with younger children, Ethan helped calm them down and show that it was possible to overcome difficulties. In one of these sessions, Ethan was working with a 6-year-old girl who had recently lost her sight in a household accident. The girl, named Isabella, refused to touch any instrument and spent the sessions crying. "Isabella, can I tell you a story?" said Ethan, sitting beside her. The girl didn't respond, but stopped crying. "When I lost my sight, I thought I would never be happy again. I thought my life was over. I stayed in my room all day, didn't want to eat, didn't want to play, didn't want to do anything." Isabella lifted her head toward Ethan's voice. "Like me. Like you. But then I met Uncle Michael, and he taught me something very important. Do you want to know what it was?" "Yes." "He taught me that our eyes aren't the only way to see the world. We can see with our hands, with our ears, with our heart. Do you want me to show you?" Ethan took Isabella's hand and guided it to the keyboard. "Now close your eyes and press this key." "But I can't see anyway." "I know. But when we close our eyes on purpose, we can focus better on what we're feeling." Isabella pressed the key and a clear sound filled the room. "Now imagine this sound is a little bird singing. Can you imagine?" Isabella smiled for the first time since she had arrived at the program. "Yes." "Now press this other key. Imagine it's a different bird answering the first one." Isabella pressed the second key and her smile widened. "Are they talking?" "Yes. And now you're going to make them tell a story. It can be any story you want." Over the next 20 minutes, Isabella created a small musical composition that told the story of 2 birds who met in the forest. Michael and Jennifer watched in admiration as Ethan had achieved in minutes what they had been trying for weeks. "How did you know exactly what to say to her?" asked Michael after the session. "Because I remember how I felt, and I remember the things you told me that made me feel better." Ethan's response showed how the cycle of help had come full circle. He had received support when he needed it, and now he was able to offer the same support to other children. Isabella's case was just one of many where Ethan demonstrated a natural ability to help other children. Michael began formally including him as a junior assistant in the program, recognizing that the boy's lived experience was as valuable as technical knowledge. During an interview for a local television program, Ethan was asked about his future. "Ethan, have you decided what you want to do when you grow up?" "I want to help kids like me, like Uncle Michael does, but not just with music. I want to show them that being different doesn't mean being less. It means being unique." "And do you have any message for other children who are watching?" Ethan looked directly at the camera, even though he couldn't see it. "If you're going through something hard, don't give up. Sometimes good things take a while to get here, but they do come. And sometimes they come from places we never imagined. Uncle Michael was in a prison when I met him, but he became the most important person in my life after my mom." The interview aired on a Sunday afternoon and had an unexpected impact. Hundreds of families with special needs children got in touch, wanting to learn more about the program. Donations started coming in from all over the country. And the most surprising thing, several prisons contacted them wanting to implement similar programs with their inmates. Michael found himself in the unusual position of consultant for the program's national expansion. He traveled regularly to other cities, training volunteers and helping to establish new program centers. During one of these trips, Michael received a call that moved him deeply. It was from his old principal at the school where he had worked before prison. "Michael, I've been following everything you've done. I wanted to offer you an opportunity to return to working in formal education." "Mr. Robert, I really appreciate it, but I don't know if I'd be accepted at a school after everything that happened." "Michael, you've redeemed yourself in a way few manage to do. You turned a mistake into an opportunity to serve. We have an opening for a special education coordinator. It's yours if you want it." The offer represented a chance for Michael to completely rebuild his professional life, but it would also mean less time available for the police station program and for the children he had learned to love. Michael talked with Jennifer about the dilemma. "Michael, this is a unique opportunity for you. You can't turn it down because of our program. But the children need me. Ethan needs me." "Ethan isn't that dependent little boy you met anymore. He's grown, he's become stronger, and part of that growth comes precisely from seeing you rebuild your life." Jennifer was right. Ethan had transformed into a confident and capable young man. Continuing to be dependent on Michael wouldn't be healthy for him. Michael decided to accept the offer, but with one condition. He would continue coordinating the police station program on weekends and school holidays. The school agreed to the arrangement. When Michael told the children in the program the news, the reaction was mixed. Some were sad, others understood it was important for him to grow professionally. Ethan was the most mature in his reaction. "Uncle Michael, you taught me that we have to follow our dreams even when it's hard. If working at a school again is your dream, you have to go. You won't be sad? I'll miss you, but I won't be sad, because I know you're going to help other kids, just like you helped us, and we'll still see each other on weekends." Ethan's maturity impressed Michael once again. The boy had learned not only to deal with his own limitation, but also to understand the needs of others. Michael's last day as full-time program coordinator was marked by a special celebration. All the children who had participated in the program over the years gathered for a farewell performance. Ethan organized the performance together with Emily. Each child played a special song, and at the end, everyone together performed a new composition that Ethan had created specifically for the occasion. The song was called "Thank You, Uncle Michael," and it told, through notes and melodies, the entire journey they had shared. It began with hesitant and somber sounds, evolved into harmonies of discovery and learning, and ended with a celebration of hope and gratitude. When the performance ended, Michael was crying openly. He approached the children for his farewell speech. "You have given me so much more than I gave you. When I arrived here, I was a broken man without hope. You taught me that we can always start over, that our mistakes don't define our future, and that love can blossom in the most unlikely places." He looked especially at Ethan. "Ethan, you are my greatest teacher. You taught me about courage, about forgiveness, about the strength that can come from vulnerability. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey." Ethan walked up to Michael and hugged him. "Thank you, Uncle Michael, for teaching me that I am not the boy who lost his sight. I am the boy who discovered how to see with his heart." End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story of overcoming and second chances. Could you see how love and music can transform lives? Leave a comment telling us which part moved you the most, and share if you know someone who also found hope in difficult times. Your opinion is very important to us. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that touch the heart.